back to another video. Today we have a Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. According to the client, they had the battery vented or swollen. When both of these connectors were connected, it ended up kind of just protruding, kind of popping up a bit and causing enough pressure for the FPC connector to become dislodged. Taking a look under the microscope, let's take a look. Let's take a look together. This one is obvious. Let me zoom out a little bit. Right around there. This one is obvious. I mean, it's completely dislodged to the left. It's leaning like a three-legged lion. And I mean, just visual inspection gives that away. This one right here is a little tricky. If it looks perfect to the naked eye, but if we zoom in just a bit and we get it clear, you can see right here that once you start to pinch the connector, it's not even soldered on to the pads anymore. So due to the fact that, you know, it's no longer soldered to the pads, I'm gonna go ahead and replace this one as well. So before we get started, let's go ahead and take this out. I always like to do a full board visual inspection, because anytime you're dealing with either the unit coming from B to B or secondhand work, I mean, the battery was replaced. You can tell this is a brand new screen. Essentially, we have to figure out what's behind door number 1 and door number 2. So we'll switch this to the scope and zoom out and kind of take a look around and see what's really going on. And I do see a bit of corrosion around this area, not too heavy. A little bit around this diode. It's definitely got some light water damage. These caps don't look too good. Typically, these Samsungs, you can always see water on the back of the camera. I can see a little bit of watermarks right there. We should have some maybe water around the back. Yeah, so a little bit of light water damage in conjunction with 2 broken FPC connectors. I've seen worse. This is more like light water damage. Maybe pry damage, could be, potentially. That doesn't look like NC, what we refer to as not connected or no stuff. Maybe when they were at the repair shop, maybe they had a spudger, they went to go lift too close to this side. I see that often on Samsungs. All right, at least we know what we're dealing with. So we always keep these connectors in stock, as it's kind of like one of the most common things that we see on Samsungs. So all we're gonna need is essentially a board holder, our connectors, and let's get this, let's go ahead and take this camera off. All right, we got that off. We'll set this to the side. Let's go ahead and find the best way to situate it in a board holder. So I like to put a little heat sink right on top of the battery connector, and then we'll go ahead and remove this. So we already have a little bit of flux on there. And this is that connector that looks like it's soldered on, but it's the one that's wiggling. So let's move it over just a little bit. All right, just wait a few seconds, moving our air evenly left and right until this connector is ready to come up. Just waiting on the ground pins to melt. And that's it right there. All right, so that one's off. Let's take advantage while the board is warm to go ahead and remove the one that's leaning like a three-legged lion. So board should be up to temp already. So it shouldn't take that long to remove this one. And that's it. So we got both of those connectors off. We don't have any ripped pads or anything crazy like that. So let's do an inspection, clean off some of this burnt flux. And we can see we're looking pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and change all of this alloy. The alloy that we're dealing with right here is essentially lead-free. We're gonna mix leaded solder with lead-free so that we don't have to sit here and stress the board with hot air even more. So let's go ahead and prep these pads and then we'll move on to the next step. So we'll be using some 148 paste. Now, just because we're using 148 paste does not mean that I'm going to leave this on the motherboard. So if you're following along and you're skipping along through the video and you're trying to use this as a guide, watch the full video. So we're gonna leave leaded solder 1/8, preferably in a stick form of 183. So we're gonna use this guy as the final solder that's gonna be left on the board. Definitely be careful with the small components. We'll just tap that back and put that back over there. There we go. Going over every single pad. All right, now it's time to remove this 148 because it's not reliable. I only use it just to lower the temperature and get rid of the old alloy. So let's get a little piece of copper wick. I like to have a few pieces ready. I'll just set them to the side next to my board holder. We'll come back with a 245 chisel. And we'll get rid of all of this 148. I'm turning on my fume extractor. Go a little sideways with it. Get rid of the glare. And we'll work our way down bit by bit. So we don't have any components on the right side. Just be mindful. If you have components on the left or the right. Now, I'm not using any pressure. I'm just letting the heat do the job instead of force. There we go. Let's move on to the final connector. I'll grab a new piece of wick from time to time. Your wick becomes ineffective if you keep using the same piece of wick over and over. So this one I'm doing at a like slanted angle, and then I'll come back and finish the rest off. Sometimes you'll get this over here where it looks like, well, that's the same line. You can tell it's the same line, but you'll get something a little bit like reminiscent to what you're seeing here, is where the mask breaks off just a little bit. And I believe that's just from the original force, from when the, that's the display FPC, that the one the display FPC broke off. Let's go ahead and finish wicking from this side. Go ahead and cut a little piece off. And we'll come from this side over here. Get this last portion. Okay. Let's go ahead and clean this up. Looking good so far. So first thing I'm gonna do is add a little bit of UV solder mask to this line over here, just to make sure our pads won't get too big and cause any kind of issues with connections. Just need a little small amount, nothing too major. Our goal is to kind of make sure that the pads are not able to connect to other pads. That should be fine right there. We'll even add some to the ground area. Making sure that we don't make the pad bigger than what it's supposed to be. So I'm just gonna grab my UV light. We can use a little bit of hot air. Get the light on there. And this is gonna help the UV cure all the way through to the bottom. Just takes a few seconds and that's it. Okay. Let's go ahead and get our connectors prepped. So we'll go ahead and grab our connectors. I like to inspect my connectors first, make sure they aren't warped. Sometimes we get packages where the connector is a little bit warped towards the middle. These look fine though. So this is what we'll do. We'll just flip them over. Flip this one over as well. And we'll start by tinning each and every one of those little legs. We'll go ahead and get a smaller density iron. You don't need like a big iron to do this. The bigger the iron, the more susceptible you are to melting the actual plastic. So be very careful with that. We're gonna go ahead and switch to the scope view. All we need is a little bit of flux. Now, a lot of people deal with the issue with touching the connector with the flux and it just moving. But if you melt it with the iron at the same time, then everything just works out. So I am gonna hold the connector from one end. And everything looks fine right there. A little bit of flux. My goal is to not touch the ground pins. Touching the ground pins makes things a little bit trickier. That's what makes your connector sit higher than what it's supposed to be. So I have a little bit of paste right off to the side over here. And I'll just keep using that to reapply to each pin. I'm using a low density iron. So I'll come back over at the very end and warm it up one more time. And we're also dealing with some ground pads. So I use a little bit of assistance, hot air. Just trying to get rid of some of these bridges over here as we are plagued with some ground pads. And that should suffice. That should be good enough though. All right, moving on to the next connector. Go ahead and get rid of some of these muddy pads by adding a little bit more flux. It's okay if you get some on the ground, just remove it at the end. All bridges are gone. I want to go ahead and get rid of that little piece of solder that you see on that ground pad. I'm going to cut a short piece because I want all of those ground pads to be nice and flat. So let's get rid of that guy over there. It's going to take a little bit of heat to go up on wind speed. And we'll just come from the side over here. That's it. All right, so everything looks nice and even as far as the small pins. Clean this up real quick. Those ground pads will add a little bit of paste to the ground pads. Everything works out. We won't even have to touch up. We won't have to touch up the pins at all. So let's clean this up just a little bit more. Could actually put a clean room wipe to clean in between the connector, in between components. And what this does is it essentially exfoliates the area that you're trying to clean. So when you come back over and you look at it, you'll see that everything looks nice and clean. So we'll go ahead and finish off with applying a little bit of 183 paste right on the ground pads. So I like to grab me a number 11. So we'll grab a number 11, get a little bit of paste that we already have here on our board holder. Use the tweezers for an applicator. So I'm gonna just put a little bit right here. Don't need a lot, just a little bit, but that should be more than enough for the ground pads. This one right here, we can kind of just divide it. Okay, so we do have, I see what you see. We do have a pad here that's bridged. All we're gonna do is just add a little bit of flux and touch it with an iron, and that should be fine. So let's get a little bit of flux right there, and that's fixed. Just hold it so it won't move as much. So really low air. With enough surface tension, then we should be good to go. We're waiting for this to sit all the way flat. It takes a little longer for those ground pads to heat up. That should be fine right there. Yep. I like to tap it on both sides just a little bit to make sure it sits all the way down. And we should have a good connection right there. But you can see with this method, we zoom all the way in and we touch the pins, you won't see any pins moving. Same thing. We're gonna go ahead and add a little bit of a paste. Just go ahead and divide this a little bit. That's good there. That's good there. Just need a little bit more for this side. Just need enough for these little pads right here. Not too much. This may look easy on video, but FPC connectors are very tedious. I'm gonna flow those in place first. Some hot air. Since those are sitting closer to components, I don't want them to bridge components. I'm just going back and forth with my hot air, seeing which side is going to form first. And we should be good over here, and we should be good over here now. And that's all you need. This is a little bit too high, so I'm going to take some away, because that'll make your connector sit up high too as well. And that's fine on the other side. All right, let's get this connector on here. While the board is a little warm. So as a guide, I'm just using these small pins. We'll get you don't have to be 1,000,000% perfect, but that's almost spot on. And we'll go ahead and install this. We'll add more flux in just in a second. I just don't want it to go flying off. Now, these are long connectors, so you're gonna have to constantly keep moving your hot air left and right for a while. All right, now that it's melting just a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and add some more flux without touching the connector. We're just gonna go ahead and get a little bit more flux on there. And I'm gonna flow this guy right in place. Again, I like to bump it and push down a little bit. So we'll push down towards this side. Once I see it kind of move and shift, then I'll bump the other side. That's good on that side. It's good on that side. And that should be fine on this side now. That's good. We'll just make sure that all of the pads are making contact. And we'll just clean up the little bit of IPA that's just left on the board and light flux. All right, so both of those guys are installed. So right behind door number 2, we're gonna have a direct short on the battery line. So if we trace this to R24000, we can see that it ends up going to the battery connector, crosses over to the right side of R24000. We could have a possibility. We could have this populated area here could have corrosion. You could be dealing with an IC on the back side of the PCB that has a compromised circuit on either this side or the other side. My goal is to go to the overhead cam and use thermal imaging to see which one of these guys get hot, or see if it's coming from the interposer, and we'll take it from there. I'm gonna go ahead and just plug in regular old-fashioned multimeter leads. We're gonna go ahead and solder this to our positive terminal. We have a little wire here. I know it's hard to see, but we have a little wire. Add a little bit of flux to the side of the wire. And we'll add a little bit of solder. For voltage injection, I actually like using multimeter leads. And we'll go ahead and get this soldered on. So once we get this soldered on, we'll go ahead and activate our output. This is insulated wire, so it's taking me a second just to burn the insulation off. All right, good. So we got the wire soldered on. Go ahead and activate our output. So we can pretty much be mimicking the battery, because that goes directly to the battery line. You can start off a little bit lower as far as the amount of voltage you're injecting, but I think we're gonna stick with this. So let's go to my memory mode. Let's go about 1.5 amps, 4.2 volts, 1.5 amps. And this is gonna be our general area that we're gonna be checking over here. You'll be able to see it on the bottom of the screen. Yeah, I don't see an individual cap lighting up per se. I see the IC itself. So we're gonna remove that IC real quick and then see if we're clear of a short. What I like to do is put about 1 or 2 copper heat sinks right next to the CPU. Right there in the corner. We'll add a nozzle little more direct airflow to the chip. This chip is going to take a lot of heat to come off. There we go. So let's clean up any bridging that we have right here. I'm gonna just get rid of that one little bridge that we see right there. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and flip my motherboard back over, and let's see if we can clear this short, or see if the short is gone rather. Good, no balls popping out of the CPU, nothing crazy. We did have to go high on heat because you got a lot of shields, heavy ground plane on the other side. So we're gonna test this line over here and see if the short is gone. We've got a red probe on ground, checking this side again. This side is still shorted. Okay, we're gonna take one more IC off that could potentially be the culprit. But after that, we're going to have to split the sandwich, and I'd have to get the customer's confirmation on that. So that line is still shorted. Yeah, this cap's supposed to give me about 300 millivolts, 0.300, 300-ish. And we could be dealing with this. I have an assumption that we have corrosion in the interposer, but just to figure it out real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this chip here. Just kind of warm up the board a little bit. There we go. Clear any temporary bridges that we have right now. That's the only line that was touching. Okay, we'll let this cool off just for a moment. And I'll know if the short is gone, because what we'll be dealing with is either A, still having a short on that cap, this cap specifically right here. This cap here goes to this line. So it's C7095. So also the same line, again guys, goes directly to the interposer. So if water found its way inside of the interposer, then you have a bunch of these positive pins touching possibly A883, A884, or just, it could be corrosion anywhere. I mean, it's water damage, so pick your poison. So let's go back over here and see if this line is clear. Diode mode, red probe on ground, short is still present. So yeah, this short is inside of the interposer. And basically we have to confirm with the customer to see if they want to go ahead and proceed with data recovery. So we're projected to have a short right around here. It's actually, I could see that this is also fall damage now that I'm looking at it a little closer. Definitely some fall damage. It's probably some damaged pads over around this area. So yeah, this is gonna be 100% data recovery. I do have to reach out to the client. So customer went ahead and canceled the data recovery, but this part right here, which I'm gonna go over, is just more for a sanity check and for the YouTube video. I'm gonna go ahead and just flip this over and plug it in and show you guys something. So I did properly install the charging port FPC, because you're gonna see a lightning bolt come up in just a second, and actually it won't fully boot, but we will see an actual lightning symbol. It would only stay there as long as you keep the charger connected, because that circuit is consuming probably, I don't know, almost 1.5 amps or 800 milliamps. Not enough for the phone to actually charge and boot and everything. And then obviously we have display, hence the display FPC is also installed correctly. So the only path to data would be to take a donor board and completely do a transfer. I am under suspicion that the customer's logic board needs to be transferred to a good known board. I think that right around here on the customer's board, that they're dealing with some type of delamination and also possibly burnt traces on those positive pins. If this would have been a situation where they would have confirmed the data recovery, then I would have done a swap. and then you guys would have been seeing that during the rest of the video. But nonetheless, this is pretty much where we're at right now. Again, I just ended up using my own housing because the customer's housing is pretty much a lot of stuff, a lot of parts and small parts in their housing is just in really bad shape. As you can see right here, the disconnector as well as the customer's battery. That concludes the video. Thanks for sticking all the way to the end of the video, guys. If you need something repaired like this or you're having a similar issue, don't hesitate to reach out to us on our B2B link that's posted on links in the description. We handle anything from B2B, business to business, and customer mailing repairs. I should have some content pretty soon coming up right around the corner. I'll check you guys out later. Peace.